but it is interesting. I didn't realize there were so many overlaps with major figures in comedy and politically connected parents and grandparents. It's a little crazy because it's always presented as, oh, these are just the dropouts who sit in the back of the classroom. Yeah, who found this little niche to make it. And it's like, no, even within that, you're signed to the right agency. You got a little money from mom and dad.
The craziest thing is, and I have my opinions on who it is, I'm not going to say right now, but who did the FBI have infiltrate, let's say, the Comedy Store? Let's say before COVID, the Comedy Store was the mecca of comedy. It was also the mecca of comedy podcasts. All the biggest podcasts were there. Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, Mark Maron, Bad Friends. You can go down all the podcasts that were coming out of there. You're telling me they wouldn't send somebody in there? I do believe the Chinese government had people in there. But you're telling me the intelligence agents weren't infiltrating the mecca of cultural comedy at the time?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. In sense of it happening at the actual place, sure. But there's always that conversation about Joe Rogan and how can you have such a huge platform and it not be fucked with, whether you know about it or not, whether you got a talking to or not. I definitely know he needs to stop having Mike Baker on so goddamn much. But other than that, it's just like he does a pretty good job of going from UFC people to some of his boys to, okay, now here's an archaeologist and here's a this and a that. But occasionally there will be some ex-CIA type of person. I mean, it definitely had an effect, you could say, on the election. Maybe it not that big of an effect, but it's involved. And how interesting that Theo Vaughn, we talked about him and Rogan. They're sitting down with the president. You've shared a microphone and a seat with Donald Trump. It's interesting. I mean,
we're podcast Eskimo brothers. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, because we came out on the same day together. We got 55 million views together. We did it. Yay, team. Yay. Most of it was his, but
yeah,
together.
That was funny. Everybody's waiting for the Trump interview and the Sam Tripoli interview drops.
Yeah. So let me just say this about Rogan. I have a blind spot for Rogan. Because I love him so much. He saved me when I was broke. He did my shows and allowed me to pay my bills, so I'll always be that. I've seen the organic growth of Rogan.
I agree with that.
Okay, I would tell you that Rogan is the master or the face of two things that didn't exist 30 some years ago. And what are those? UFC and podcasting. And they probably are connected. He brought all of these UFC fans to his podcast, and he's just got a black belt in almost everything. One of them is talking. I've had multiple conversations with Rogan where he tells me how he books the show, and he's just like, from the fucking phone, that's it. I'm the only one. I just know Rogan. Nobody tells Rogan what to do. I can't say 24 hours, 7 days a week, everything, this, that. I think Rogan's also very smart at knowing how to play the game. Like, I think what Rogan did for a very long time was when he wanted to have things discussed, he would bring someone on to discuss it, and then he would be like, you're a crazy guy for saying that. But he would get it out while at the same time playing the game like, I'm not into this. He's that smart. Now, they had the Mike Bakers on. I think you got to play a little game. When you're that level, you got to play a little game. 100 for me, 1 for you. Or maybe he just enjoys talking to him. It's definitely possible. He still has people on that are somewhat demonized on the internet because he loves them. So all I know is that the Rogan I know, nobody tells him what to do. I love him very much. I don't know where I'd be without him and Mitzi Shore. Outside my parents, I don't know where I'd be without them. So I'm very loyal to them.
Sure. And I don't even like to cast shade at other people, especially in this industry when I don't know. It's just assumed based on their success level because people do that to me. I'm not even that successful. And there's people who say
you're very successful.
There's people who say because of my success, I must be compromised. And it's like, well, maybe we can say that about the number one guy. Like maybe we can have that conversation about how does it work at this level. But like the way people come at me, it's like, it's accusations. Once you're accused, you can't really do anything except, no, I'm not, I'm not and so I don't like doing that to other people, but it is interesting when you consider the history of his arguments about the moon landing, and he would go pretty deep. He knew his facts, his alternative facts, for the alternative case for a lot of interesting things, and then kind of walked away from it. And it's fine. It's probably just like, maybe it's growing up, maybe it's talking to people who like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Can you imagine being influenced by Neil deGrasse Tyson? But
Yeah, I
it
think there was a
happens, I
time.
guess.
But this is what I'll say about Rogan. The times that people at the center of JRE, dude, is a human being.
Yeah.
A human being like you and me, who has his positives, has his negatives, farts, probably wish you didn't drink that much the night before, stuff, a human being. And to be human is to err. Now, I will say this, okay? When Joe Rogan gets something wrong, let's say where he gets pounded, it tends to be along the lines that 95 to 97% of the population agrees with the same thing. Now, like when it came to COVID and stuff like that. Like I was there, I watched it. He had a freak out. It was a giant freak out about COVID, and I watched it happen in real time. But I also knew that most of the world thought that, and people like you, me, Eddie Bravo, were like, no, chill. They didn't listen to us. But then
Right.
later on, over time, they start to hear stuff that happens. With the moon landing, most people don't think we landed on the moon, even though at some point he didn't think we landed on the moon. But then we get to this thing where this thing is a juggernaut, right? It's a giant juggernaut. And I think there's very few people that can keep that train on the tracks outside of Joe Rogan.
Right.
And they have to be somebody that understands every word that comes out of his mouth is going to be measured by
Yeah.
people looking to wanted to take him down. So it's a game that gets played. That's my opinion. I'm not, he's never told me any of that. This is observations of a dude I know personally. And what now, just so everybody knows, I was somewhat excommunicated for 8 years. There was a short time when I wasn't allowed. I wasn't brought back on the show. I was deep into my drug problem, stuff like that. And Rogan has this ability that I wish I had to cut out crazy people. And over time, things start to go better. People start coming to coming to where we are, what we're saying. That he brings me back on the show, and I'm blessed for that. I don't get mad at him. I'm not gonna lie to you. Rogan being mad at me is one of the factors, not the biggest factor. My biggest factor getting sober was having twin girls. I didn't want them to have a junkie for a dad.
Yeah.
That was like, say, 98% of it. And then another one was like, I probably pissed Rogan off being a crazy person, tweaking my balls off. I would like to get back in with not just Rogan, but all my friends from the Death Squad days that are all doing really well. I would like to
Sure.
get back in their good graces. So,
And
that's kind of where it's at.
I also have heard him talk about feeling a sense of responsibility that only good information makes it on the show. And I definitely have struggled with that at times too. I never want to deceive. I never want to have someone on that's intentionally muddying waters and making things more difficult to understand. But I just kind of let that go and said, let the chips fall where they may. I interview people about their perspective, and then people listening can incorporate it or not. But I could understand if it was 10x, 100x the audience size, that pressure, it mounts. And you're like, is the moon landing a hill I want to die on? Do I care that much? Am I convincing anyone? What are the stakes? Or do I want $100 million from Spotify? Like, it doesn't matter that much. So I could see that calculation being made, and it's fine. Everybody plays their game. Can you believe it, people? A video clip and a peek into how that sweet THC sausage is made. For some people, I'm sure it's nice to put a face to the name, so I started making clips that are a little more YouTube friendly than the full show tends to be. Get the full show on any podcasting platform. I prefer to keep it audio only, so we have a more decentralized distribution for a controversial show, and also so I can edit out the ums and ahs and barking dogs and all the things that happen when a person records in their home environment. And then if you really like the show, you can sign up for THC Plus, and instead of 1 hour interviews, you get the full 2 hour interview for just $8. I think that's a better deal, more of a win-win than asking you to support the show by booking a therapy session or buying generic Viagra. It's getting weird out there, folks. So just go to thehighersidechats.com or click the link at the top of any set of show notes, and all your wildest dreams will come true. All right? All right.